At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain about if I'm going to do what I was born, the things I was brought into the world to do? These aren't the words of some modern productivity guru selling you a $2,000 course. This is Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth, 2,000 years ago, arguing with himself about getting out of bed. Today, I will show you the exact morning routine this Roman emperor used to build mental resilience that would make Navy SEALs jealous. Picture this. It's 5 a.m. in ancient Rome. The most powerful man on the planet, someone who could have executed anyone with a snap of his fingers, is sitting alone in his private chambers, writing to himself in a journal. Not planning military campaigns, not counting his vast wealth, writing thoughts about how to be a better human being. This is Marcus Aurelius, and what you're about to discover will completely revolutionize how you think about morning routines. While we're obsessing over cold showers and green smoothies, this emperor cracked a code that modern science is only now beginning to understand. He discovered that the first hour of your day doesn't just set the tone, it rewires your brain. And here's the crazy part. His routine was so powerful that his private journal was never meant for the public eye, but is still studied by CEOs, athletes, and world leaders today. It's called Meditations, essentially the world's first self-help book written by someone who ruled the world. But here's what most people get wrong about Marcus Aurelius. They think of him as this stoic, emotionless figure carved in marble. The truth? He struggled with the same things we do: anxiety, procrastination, difficult people, the temptation to stay in bed when the alarm goes off. The difference is what he did about it. Part 1. The Morning Struggle. Let me read you something that will blow your mind. This is from Book 5 of Meditations. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. Or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm. But it's nicer here. So you were born to feel nice, instead of doing things and experiencing them? Don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants and spiders and bees going about their tasks, putting the world in order as best they can? And you're not willing to do your job as a human being? Does this sound familiar? This is a 2,000-year-old snooze button debate. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth, had to convince himself to get out of bed just like you do. But here's what makes this incredible. Instead of forcing himself up like some macho approach, he created a philosophical framework that transformed waking up into a spiritual practice. He understood something modern neuroscience confirms. The first few minutes after waking up are when your brain is most neuroplastic and most open to rewiring itself. This is why your first thoughts and actions matter so much. Marcus wasn't just getting out of bed. He was programming his consciousness for the entire day ahead. Part 2. The 4 Pillars of Imperial Awakening. Pillar 1. The Reality Check. Marcus began every single day with what I call the reality check. Before his feet even hit the floor, he would prepare his mind for the day ahead with this legendary passage. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. Now, before you think Marcus was a pessimist, listen to the rest. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine, and so none of them can hurt me. This is psychological genius. Marcus wasn't being negative, but inoculating himself against disappointment and anger. He was setting realistic expectations while maintaining compassion. Modern psychology calls this defensive pessimism, and research shows it increases performance and reduces anxiety. By mentally rehearsing challenges, your brain prepares solutions in advance. But here's the Marcus Aurelius twist. He coupled this preparation with radical compassion. He reminded himself that difficult people aren't evil. They're just confused about what's good. This one practice can completely transform your day. Instead of being blindsided by rude colleagues or traffic jams, you're prepared. Instead of taking things personally, you respond with wisdom. Try this tomorrow. Before getting out of bed, spend 2 minutes mentally preparing for the day's challenges while reminding yourself that everyone is doing their best with their current understanding. Pillar 2. The Purpose Declaration. After the reality check, Marcus would declare his purpose. Not his job title or his role as emperor, but his purpose as a human being. He would remind himself, "We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural." This is profound. The most powerful man on earth started each day by remembering that his primary job wasn't to rule it, but to serve the common good. Modern research on purpose shows that people who start their day by connecting to something larger than themselves experience 23% better physical health, 15% longer lifespan, significantly higher levels of life satisfaction, better decision-making under pressure. But Marcus took this further. He didn't just think about purpose, but set specific intentions for how he would embody that purpose that day. He would ask himself, "How can I serve others today? What's the most important thing I can do for the common good? How can I show up as the best version of myself?" This wasn't abstract philosophy. This was practical planning based on values, not just tasks. Pillar 3, the mortality reminder. This is where Marcus Aurelius gets intense. Every morning, he would practice what Stoics call memento mori, remembering death. He would write things like, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." I know what you're thinking. That's morbid. But hear me out. Marcus wasn't being macabre, was cultivating urgency and perspective. When you truly internalize that this day might be your last, several things happen. 1. Petty annoyances lose their power over you. 2. You focus on what truly matters. 3. You become more present in each moment. 4. You appreciate ordinary experiences. Steve Jobs said it best. "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose." Marcus would ask himself, "If this were my last day, how would I spend it? How would I treat the people I encounter? What would I want to accomplish?" This practice doesn't make you depressed. It makes you alive. Pillar 4, the physical activation. Marcus Aurelius wasn't just a philosopher, was a warrior. Every morning included physical preparation for the day. He understood that a strong mind requires a strong body. His routine included cold water exposure. Ancient Romans were prominent in cold baths. Physical exercise or movement. Proper nutrition to fuel the day. But here's what's interesting. Marcus treated physical discomfort as mental training. He would deliberately seek challenges such as cold water, physical exertion, and simple foods, not as punishment, but as practice. He was training his mind to be comfortable with discomfort, to not be controlled by physical sensations or cravings for comfort. Modern neuroscience shows that voluntary discomfort rewires your brain, increasing your tolerance for stress and building mental resilience. Marcus would say to himself, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." Wait, that was Nietzsche. But the sentiment was the same. Part 3. The journal practice. Now, here's where Marcus Aurelius becomes truly revolutionary. He didn't just think of these thoughts, He wrote them down. Every single morning, Marcus would spend time with what he called his journal to myself. This wasn't a diary of events. It was a practice of philosophical self-coaching. He would write things like, "Today I will be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Our life is what our thoughts make it. But notice something. He wasn't just writing random inspirational quotes. He conversed with himself, worked through specific challenges, and reinforced core principles. Modern research on journaling shows incredible benefits. 47% reduction in stress, improved immune function, better emotional regulation, increased self-awareness, enhanced problem-solving abilities. But Marcus took this practice to the next level. His journal entries followed a specific pattern. Step 1. Philosophical preparation. He would remind himself of key Stoic principles that applied to the day ahead. Step 2. Intention setting. He would write down his specific goals and how he wanted to show up. Step 3. Challenge anticipation. He would mentally rehearse potential difficulties and his responses. Step 4. Gratitude and perspective. He would remind himself of what he was grateful for and the bigger picture. This wasn't just positive thinking. It was strategic mental programming. Part 4. The evening review. What most people miss about Marcus Aurelius. His morning routine was only half the equation. The real magic happened in the evening. Laodius Seneca, another great Stoic, described this practice perfectly. "When the light has been taken away and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I have done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." Marcus would end each day by reviewing the following. What did I do well today? He would genuinely acknowledge his victories, no matter how small. This builds confidence and reinforces positive patterns. What could I improve? He would assess his mistakes and failures honestly, but not beat himself up to learn and grow. What did I learn about myself? He would extract wisdom from the day's experiences, treating every interaction as data for self-improvement. How can I be better tomorrow? He would set specific intentions for the next day based on his learning. This practice creates a feedback loop between your morning intentions and evening reflections. You start the day with purpose and end it with wisdom. Modern research calls this deliberate practice. The difference between experts and amateurs isn't just time spent, but the quality of reflection and adjustment. Marcus Aurelius ran continuous experiments on himself, constantly refining his approach to life based on real-world results. Part 5. Modern application. But how do I apply this in my crazy modern life? Great question. The beautiful thing about Marcus Aurelius's routine is that it adapts to modern life. And the 10-minute Emperor morning routine. Minutes 1 to 2. The reality check. Before leaving bed, mentally prepare for the day's challenges while maintaining compassion for difficult people. Minutes 3 to 4. Purpose declaration. Set your intention for how you want to serve others and show up as your best self today. Minutes 5 and 6. Mortality reminder. Ask yourself, if this were my last day, how would I want to spend it? Let that guide your priorities. Minutes 7 to 10. Journal practice. Write down your key intention for the day. One challenge you might face and how you'll handle it. One thing you're grateful for. One way you'll serve others today. The 5-minute evening review. Minutes 1-2. Daily assessment. What went well? What could be improved? Minutes 3-4. Learning extraction. What did I learn about myself today? Minute 5. Tomorrow's intention. Based on today, how will I be better tomorrow? That's it. 15 minutes total that can completely transform your life. But here's the key. Consistency over intensity. Marcus did this for decades, not just when he felt motivated. Marcus Aurelius ruled the largest empire in human history. He led armies, made life and death decisions, and dealt with plagues, wars, and political intrigue. But he didn't start his day checking messages or rushing into action. He began with philosophy, with intention, with preparation, because he understood something we've forgotten. How you start your day determines who you become. The most powerful man on earth spent time every morning becoming a better human being. What's your excuse? Your morning routine isn't just about productivity, but character development. It's about slowly, day by day, becoming the person you want to be. Marcus Aurelius died over 1,800 years ago, but his ideas are more relevant than ever. In a world of constant distraction and endless demands, we need the mental discipline and clarity that comes from starting each day with intention. So here's my challenge. Try the 10-minute Emperor routine for 1 week. Not because some productivity guru told you to, but because one of history's most outstanding leaders proved it works. And here's what I guarantee will happen. You'll start making decisions based on your values, not your impulses. You'll become more resilient to stress and setbacks. You'll find meaning in ordinary moments. Most importantly, you'll start living like the person you were meant to be. If this video helped you understand the power of an intentional morning routine, smash that like button and subscribe for more ancient wisdom that works in modern life. And remember Marcus Aurelius's words, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Make them count." What if I told you that right now, this very moment, there's an entire world inside your mind that you've never truly explored? A realm where forgotten memories, hidden wisdom, and answers to your most profound questions are waiting to be discovered. Today, I will teach you how to converse with the most mysterious part of yourself, your unconscious mind, using a powerful technique that changed psychology forever. And unlike most self-help advice, this method was created by someone who went to the edge of madness to develop it. Welcome back to our series on ancient wisdom for modern life. Over the past few weeks, we've explored various practices to help manage modern stress and create meaningful daily routines. Last week, we delved into Marcus Aurelius's morning routine and how to start your day like a Roman emperor. Today, we're shifting from ancient Rome to the depths of the human psyche, with Carl Jung's revolutionary technique called active imagination. This isn't just another mindfulness practice. It's a radical method for conversing directly with your unconscious mind. Before we begin, I must be clear. What we're exploring today is powerful. Jung initially feared publishing his work on this technique because he understood its potency. When practiced correctly, active imagination can profoundly transform your relationship with yourself, but it requires respect and a careful approach. So, who was Carl Jung, and why should we care about his methods? Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded analytical psychology. Initially a colleague of Sigmund Freud, Jung later broke away to develop his theories about the human psyche, including the concepts of the collective unconscious, archetypes, and psychological types that gave us terms like introvert and extrovert that we still use today. But his most personal and profound contribution came from a dark period in his own life. Jung's journey. Between 1913 and 1916, as World War I engulfed Europe, Jung later experienced his confrontation with the unconscious. He began having disturbing visions and dreams that he feared might indicate he was losing his mind. Instead of suppressing these experiences, Jung made a courageous decision to engage with them deliberately. While fully awake, he would enter his unconscious mind and document what he found. The result was The Red Book, a stunning manuscript filled with vivid paintings and writings documenting his inner journeys. This book remained private until its publication in 2009, after Jung's death. During this period, Jung developed what he would later call active imagination, a method for dialoguing with unconscious aspects of the mind. He described it as a method of introspection for observing the stream of interior images. Unlike passive daydreaming, active imagination involves conscious participation in the unfolding inner narrative. Think of it this way. If dreams are like watching a movie where scenes unfold beyond your control, active imagination is like stepping into a virtual reality experience where you can interact with the characters and influence the story, all while remaining fully aware that you're engaging with aspects of your psyche. Jung believed this technique could help bridge the conscious and unconscious minds, leading to greater psychological integration and what he called individuation, becoming the person you were meant to be. What is active imagination? So, what exactly is active imagination? At its core, it's a process where you consciously engage with unconscious content, allowing images, emotions, and inner figures to emerge while actively participating in the experience. In Jung's own words, active imagination is a method of introspection for observing the stream of interior images. It's a way to give voice to parts of yourself that usually remain hidden or silent. 4 key aspects distinguish active imagination from simple daydreaming. 1. Conscious participation. Unlike passive fantasies or dreams, you remain fully awake and aware. 2. Autonomous expression. You allow unconscious content to be expressed freely without conscious interference. 3. Interaction. You engage in dialogue or interaction with the figures or images that appear. 4. Integration. You reflect on the experience afterwards, seeking to understand and integrate the insights gained. When done correctly, active imagination creates what Jung called the transcendent function, a bridge between conscious and unconscious that leads to a more unified psyche. Modern neuroscience offers fascinating insights into why this technique might work. Research suggests that visualization activates many of the same neural pathways as actual experiences. When we engage in active imagination, we're creating new neural connections and potentially rewiring our brains in beneficial ways. One study at the University of Colorado found that imagination can impact our brains and bodies in ways that significantly affect our well-being. Other research shows that similar visualization practices can reduce pain, speed healing, aid recovery from trauma, improve sleep, and reduce anxiety and depression. But most importantly, active imagination helps us access what Jung called the self, the organizing center of the entire psyche that contains our fullest potential. Safety first, precautions for inner work. Before diving into the practical aspects of active imagination, we must discuss safety. This technique isn't for everyone, and certain precautions must be taken. First, active imagination is not recommended for people experiencing active psychosis or schizophrenia, severe personality disorders, difficulty distinguishing reality from fantasy, overwhelming trauma symptoms. If you're currently in therapy or under psychiatric care, consult your mental health professional before attempting this practice. For those who are psychologically stable, here are critical safety guidelines. 1. Start slowly and gently. Begin with brief sessions of 5 to 15 minutes. Don't dive into the deepest waters immediately. Like physical exercise, Psychological work requires gradual conditioning. 2. Create safe boundaries. Always have a clear beginning and end to your practice. I recommend using physical cues like lighting a candle to begin and extinguishing it to end, or simply setting a timer. 3. Stay grounded. Keep one foot in everyday reality. If you feel overwhelmed, open your eyes. Look around the room and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. 4. Respect your limits. If something feels too intense or threatening, you can pause, take a break, or stop entirely. This is your practice and you remain in control. 5. Have support available. Ideally, practice when someone trustworthy is nearby or available by phone. Consider working with a Jungian analyst or therapist trained in depth psychology for deeper work. 6. Record your experiences. Keep a journal dedicated to your active imagination experiences. This creates a psychological container and helps with integration. 7. Integrate before proceeding. Take time to reflect on and integrate one experience before rushing into another. Jung emphasized that the goal isn't just to have enjoyable inner experiences and incorporate them into your daily life. Remember Jung's warning. The danger of active imagination is that it can resemble schizophrenia. However, the key difference is that you maintain conscious awareness and control in active imagination. You can always return to normal consciousness. As Jung stated, in active imagination, the expectation is that the conscious mind will react and interact with the unconscious material as it emerges. This conscious interaction is what makes the practice therapeutic, rather than potentially destabilizing. The practice, step-by-step guide. Now, let's explore how to practice active imagination. I'll outline a basic 4-step process based on Jung's approach. Step 1. Preparation, setting the stage. Find a quiet, private space where you won't be disturbed. Sit comfortably, but not so comfortably that you'll fall asleep. Take several deep breaths to center yourself. Have your journal and pen ready to record your experience afterwards. Set a clear intention for your practice. I am opening to unconscious wisdom while remaining present and aware. Step 2. Initiation, beginning the journey. There are several ways to initiate active imagination. Focus on a recent dream image that had emotional power. Pay attention to a strong emotion you're currently experiencing. Visualize a door, path, or threshold, and imagine crossing it. Ask a specific question to your unconscious. Use a bodily sensation as a starting point. Whatever approach you choose, the key is to focus your attention while remaining receptive to what emerges. Step 3. Engagement, the heart of the practice. Once an image, figure, or scene appears, observe it without judgment or interpretation. Allow it to move, change, or speak on its own. Engage in dialogue if appropriate. Ask questions. Who are you? What do you want me to know? Remain curious rather than controlling. The critical skill is balancing conscious participation with allowing the unconscious to express itself freely. Don't force the imagery or put words in the mouths of the figures you encounter. As Jung said, the key to active imagination is restraining the conscious waking mind from exerting influence on internal images as they unfold. Step 4. Integration, bringing it back. When you sense the session is complete or your timer sounds, thank the figures or images you encountered. Visualize yourself returning to ordinary consciousness. Ground yourself physically. Feel your feet on the floor, take deep breaths. Immediately write down or record your experience. Reflect on what happened without overanalyzing. Integration continues in the hours and days that follow. Pay attention to how the experience affects your dreams, moods, and insights. Let me offer a personal example of what active imagination might look like. Share a brief example of an active imagination session, perhaps starting with an emotion like anxiety, watching it take form as a nervous figure, engaging in dialogue with it, and discovering that it's trying to protect you from something. Remember that active imagination takes many forms. Some people experience vivid visual imagery, while others hear voices or feel sensations. There's no right way to experience it. Journaling exercises. Now, explore specific journaling exercises that can enhance your active imagination practice. These written forms of active imagination are especially valuable for those who don't experience strong visual imagery. Exercise 1. Dialogue writing. This is perhaps the most direct form of written active imagination. Begin by writing a question to a specific part of yourself or your unconscious in general. Then allow a response to come through your hand without censoring or controlling it. Continue the dialogue, alternating between your conscious and the other voice. Note any tone, vocabulary, or perspective shifts that might indicate different parts of yourself speaking. Exercise 2. Character encounter. Write about meeting a figure from a dream or your imagination. Describe their appearance, manner, and energy in detail. Ask them questions and record their answers. Inquire about their role in your life and what they need from you. Exercise 3. Symbol exploration. Choose a symbol that has appeared in your dreams or that you feel drawn to. Describe it in vivid detail. Ask the symbol to reveal its meaning or purpose in your life. Allow it to transform or evolve on the page. Exercise 4. Body wisdom dialogue. Focus on a physical sensation or symptom in your body. Imagine this sensation has consciousness and can communicate. Write a dialogue between yourself and this bodily experience. Ask what message it's trying to convey. Exercise 5. Shadow integration. Think of quality or behavior in others that strongly irritates you. Imagine this as a character and write a dialogue with them. Ask what they want, what they fear, and what they have to teach you. Look for ways this quality might be disowned within yourself. When journaling, allow your writing to flow without judgment or censorship. Don't worry about grammar, spelling, or coherence. The goal is authentic expression, not literary quality. After completing any of these exercises, reflect on what emerged. Look for insights, patterns, or guidance relevant to your current situation, bringing it into daily life. Active imagination isn't just a fascinating psychological exercise. It can transform your life. Here are ways to integrate this practice into your daily life. 1. Regular practice. Set aside 10-20 minutes, 2 to 3 times weekly, for active imagination. Consistency builds depth and a relationship with the unconscious. 2. Dream connection. Use active imagination to continue exploring significant dreams. This creates a dynamic relationship between your dreaming and waking consciousness. 3. Decision-making. When facing difficult choices, use active imagination to dialogue with different perspectives within yourself. This can reveal wisdom beyond logical analysis. 4. Relationship insights. Use active imagination to explore challenging relationships by dialoguing with your image of the other person, while recognizing this is your projection, not the actual person. 5. Creativity enhancement. Many artists, writers, and musicians use forms of active imagination to access creative inspiration. It can help overcome blocks and open new artistic possibilities. Remember Jung's words: "All the works of man originate in creative fantasy. What right have we, then, to depreciate imagination?" Your imagination isn't just for entertainment. It's a powerful tool for psychological growth and creative expression. We've explored Jung's profound technique of active imagination, a method he developed during his psychological crisis that became one of his most valuable contributions to depth psychology. You can access inner wisdom, creative potential, and paths to greater wholeness by learning to dialogue with your unconscious. But remember, this practice requires respect, patience, and careful boundaries. If you found value in today's exploration, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more ancient wisdom adapted for modern life. Leave a comment below sharing your experiences with active imagination or questions you might have. Next week, we'll continue our journey with Why 90% of People Feel Empty Inside. Ancient philosophers predicted this crisis. Until then, remember Carl Jung's powerful insight: who looks outside, dreams; who looks inside, awakens. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of the psyche. I'll see you next time. You wake up, check your phone, scroll through endless content, go to work, come home, watch Netflix, and repeat. Sound familiar? If you feel something fundamental is missing from your life, like you're going through the motions but not living, you're not alone. You're experiencing what philosophers and psychologists call the greatest crisis of our time: the meaning crisis. But here's what's shocking. Ancient philosophers predicted this problem over 2,000 years ago, and they left us a roadmap to solve it. I'm Brian, and in the next 30 minutes, I will show you why modern life feels so empty, how we got here, and most importantly, how ancient wisdom can help you build a life that matters. We're living through something unprecedented in human history. For the first time, we have access to infinite information, endless entertainment, and more material comfort than any generation before us. Yet rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide are skyrocketing. Young people report feeling more isolated and purposeless than ever. This isn't just a personal problem. It's a civilizational crisis. Psychologist John Vervaeke calls it the meaning crisis, affecting millions worldwide. But what's fascinating is that this exact scenario was predicted by ancient philosophers who understood something about human nature that we've forgotten. The Stoics, Buddhists, and existentialist thinkers all warned that people become spiritually empty when societies become too focused on external pleasures and lose touch with deeper purposes. They called it different names, but described the same phenomenon we're experiencing today. Section 1. Understanding the modern meaning of crisis. The 4 pillars of meaning we've lost. Ancient philosophers identified 4 essential elements that give life meaning, and modern society has systematically undermined each one. First, purpose beyond ourselves. Traditional societies gave people clear roles and purposes that connected them to something larger. You were a farmer feeding your community, a craftsman creating beauty, a parent raising the next generation. Today, many people work jobs that feel disconnected from any meaningful impact. We've replaced purpose with productivity, meaning with metrics. Second, coherent worldview. Our ancestors had comprehensive stories about reality, religious, philosophical, or cultural narratives that explained their place in the universe. These worldviews provided frameworks for understanding suffering, death, and moral choices. Today, we live in what philosophers call narrative fragmentation. We have access to thousands of competing worldviews, but no coherent story to live by. Third, community and belonging. Humans evolved in tight-knit tribes where everyone knew their role and felt genuinely needed. Modern individualism, while giving us freedom, has also created unprecedented isolation. We have more connections than ever through social media, but fewer deep, meaningful relationships. Fourth, transcendent experiences. Ancient cultures built regular practices for experiencing something beyond the mundane, through ritual, ceremony, meditation, or contemplation of nature. These experiences reminded people that life contains mystery and beauty beyond material concerns. Today, we've replaced mainly transcendence with entertainment and consumption. The digital amplification effect. Technology hasn't created the meaning crisis, but has amplified it dramatically. Social media creates what psychologists call compare and despair. We constantly measure our inner reality against others' curated highlights. Dating apps turn relationships into a marketplace. News cycles create artificial urgency about things we can't control. Most dangerously, digital technology hijacks our attention, the very faculty we need to reflect on meaning and purpose. Ancient philosophers understood that meaning emerges from contemplation, but we live in constant distraction. Section 2. Ancient solutions for modern problems. The Stoic framework. Control and character. The Stoics faced their version of the meaning crisis when the Roman Republic collapsed and traditional values crumbled. Their solution was radical. Find meaning not in external circumstances, but in how you respond to them. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Stoics taught that meaning comes from developing character, practicing virtue, and focusing on what you can control. Modern application. Instead of seeking meaning through career success, relationship status, or social media validation, all things largely outside your control, focus on becoming the person you respect. Ask yourself daily, how can I respond to today's challenges with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline? The Buddhist insight. Suffering and acceptance. Buddhism emerged from Prince Siddhartha's confrontation with the meaning crisis of his time. Despite having every material pleasure, he felt profoundly empty. His solution was to understand that suffering comes from attachment to impermanent things. The Buddhist path doesn't eliminate suffering, but transforms our relationship to it. When you stop expecting life to be perpetually pleasant and start accepting it as it is, you find a more profound peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Modern application. Practice what Buddhists call loving kindness toward reality. When you experience disappointment, loss, or frustration, instead of fighting it or numbing it, ask, what is this experience trying to teach me? How can I grow from this? The existentialist revolution. Creating your meaning. When Nietzsche declared God is dead, he wasn't celebrating. He was warning about the meaning crisis that would follow. Existentialists like Sartre, Camus, and Frankl argued that humans must create their meaning in a universe without a predetermined purpose. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, discovered that people could endure almost any suffering if they found meaning in it. He observed that prisoners who maintained a sense of purpose, whether reuniting with family, completing important work, or helping fellow prisoners, were more likely to survive. Modern application. Stop waiting for life to hand you purpose. Instead, ask, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? What problems do I feel called to solve? What would I regret not attempting? Then, commit to that direction, regardless of external validation. The philosophical practice of memento mori. Ancient philosophers regularly contemplated death, not to be morbid, but to clarify what truly matters. When you remember that your time is limited, trivial concerns fade away, and essential priorities become clear. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining the loss of things they valued to appreciate them more fully and prepare mentally for inevitable change. This wasn't pessimism, but realism that led to gratitude and urgency about meaningful action. Modern application. Spend 5 minutes each morning reflecting. If this were my last year alive, how would I spend today differently? What relationships would I prioritize? What would I stop worrying about? Let mortality be your teacher, not your enemy. Building a meaning-centered life. The three-tier meaning architecture. Based on ancient wisdom and modern psychology, here's a practical framework for building sustainable meaning. Tier 1, daily practices, micro-meaning. Morning intention setting. Start each day by asking, how can I serve something larger than myself today? Evening reflection. End each day by reviewing, what did I learn? How did I grow? What am I grateful for? Mindful transitions. Use moments between activities to reconnect with your deeper purposes instead of automatically reaching for your phone. Tier 2, relationships and service, meso-meaning. Deep connection. Prioritize quality time with people who matter. Ancient philosophers understood that meaning emerges through genuine relationships. Service orientation. Find ways to contribute to others' well-being. This doesn't require grand gestures. Small acts of kindness and competence create meaning. Mentorship. Both teaching and learning from others connect you to the larger human story. Tier 3, life direction and legacy, macro meaning. Values. Clarification. Identify your core values through reflection, not social conditioning. What principles would you defend even at personal cost? Mission development. Craft a personal mission statement that connects your unique abilities to meaningful problems. Legacy thinking. Consider how you want to be remembered and what you want to contribute to future generations. The digital detox strategy. Ancient philosophers practiced what we might call attention training, deliberately choosing where to focus mental energy. In our digital age, this is more crucial than ever. Weekly digital Sabbath. Choose 1 day per week to disconnect from all non-essential technology. Use this time for reflection, nature, relationships, and activities that require sustained attention. Mindful consumption. Before engaging with any media, ask, will this help me become who I want to be? Does this serve my deeper purposes? Consume information like medicine, only what you need for health and growth. Presence practice. Throughout the day, practice returning attention to the present moment. Ancient philosophers understood that meaning is only available in the now, not in mental time travel to past regrets or future anxieties. Addressing common obstacles. But I don't know what my purpose is. This is the most common objection. and ancient philosophers had a surprising answer. You don't find your purpose, you develop it through action. Aristotle taught that we discover nature by exercising our capacities, not pure contemplation. Start with what psychologists call adjacent possible. Small steps toward things that interest you. Volunteer, take classes, and have conversations with people doing work you admire. Purpose emerges through engagement, not analysis. But modern life is too complex for ancient solutions. While the external circumstances have changed, human nature remains remarkably consistent. We still need purpose, community, growth, and transcendence. The ancient frameworks are flexible enough to adapt to any era because they address universal human needs. The Stoics dealt with political upheaval, economic uncertainty, and social change. Buddhists developed their practices during times of war and cultural transformation. Existentialists emerged from the chaos of the two world wars. These philosophies were forged in crisis and tested by adversity. But what if I'm wrong about my meaning? Existentialists say this question misses the point. There's no external authority to validate your choices. That's both the terror and the freedom of human existence. The goal isn't to find the correct meaning, but to live authentically according to your deepest values. As Sartre wrote, we are condemned to be free. This means taking responsibility for your choices without guarantees, and recognizing that this responsibility makes life meaningful. Integration and future vision. The post-crisis possibility. Here's what's hopeful about our current situation. Crises often precede profound growth and renewal periods. The collapse of old certainties creates space for new wisdom to emerge. We see this in the growing interest in meditation, philosophy, and ancient wisdom traditions. People are recognizing that technological solutions alone can't address existential problems. We need what the ancients called wisdom, integrating knowledge with a practical understanding of how to live well. Building meaning-centered communities. Individual meaning-making is essential, but it's not sufficient. Humans are social beings who need communities organized around shared purposes. We're beginning to see the emergence of new forms of community philosophical discussion groups, service organizations, and intentional neighborhoods that prioritize meaning over mere convenience or entertainment. The integration challenge. The task for our generation is integration, taking the best insights from ancient wisdom traditions and combining them with modern knowledge about psychology, neuroscience, and social dynamics. We don't need to choose between ancient and contemporary approaches. We need to synthesize them. This means using scientific methods to test philosophical practices, applying ancient wisdom to contemporary challenges, and creating new traditions that serve individual flourishing and collective well-being. Your meaning-making journey starts now. Here's your challenge for the next 7 days. Choose one practice from today's discussion and commit to it completely. Whether it's morning intention setting, evening reflection, or weekly digital Sabbath, pick something and do it consistently. But more importantly, start asking different questions. Instead of, "What do I want?" ask, "What does life want from me?" Instead of, "How can I be happy?" ask, "How can I be useful?" Instead of, "What's wrong with the world?" ask, "What can I contribute?" The ancient philosophers understood something we're rediscovering. Meaning isn't something you find. It's something you create through how you choose to live. Every day, every decision, every interaction is an opportunity to build a life that matters. If this video helped you think differently about meaning and purpose, hit that like button and subscribe for more content exploring how ancient wisdom can transform modern life. Leave a comment sharing one insight that resonated with you. I read every comment and often feature the best insights in future videos. Remember, you have more power to create meaning than you realize. The philosophers who came before us faced their versions of the meaning crisis and found ways through. Their wisdom is available to you right now. The only question is, what will you do with it?